So we're very fortunate this evening to have Brother James with us, Men to Heal. He's doing some incredible work, but I think it's just very befitting that, Brother James, that you just introduce yourself and share what you're up to, what you're doing, and then we could get into the conversation. We're looking forward to this conversation on trauma and resilience. And we've been through a lot, and we're just glad to be here, and we're very fortunate to have you with us this evening. So thank you for joining us.
No, I definitely appreciate you, Mike, for extending the invitation. Appreciate you fellas for attending, giving up your Thursday evening, because like somebody alluded to earlier, I know you got children and partners and other things that you could be doing. So I'm fortunate that you guys are tuning in. So I'm James Harris. I'm a husband now, got married a couple weeks ago. I'm a father, veteran, entrepreneur, and of course a therapist. I'm located in Richmond, Virginia. I'm the founder of a movement called Men to Heal, which focuses on men's overall wellness, their mental health, physical health, and of course, their emotional health. I have a spot here in Richmond called the Healing Hub, which offers outpatient therapy, yoga, mindfulness, Zumba. I do different sessions for the community with different, I bring in different speakers. So to talk about first-time home buying, restoration of rights, voter education, feed the less fortunate every third Saturday. Just my way of giving back to the community, because in Richmond, a lot of resources tend to go to the demographic who don't look like me. So I just wanted to do my part. And I'm also the author of a book called Man, Just Express Yourself, which is an interactive planner guide for boys and men to better express themselves. Appreciate that, Mike. It's a good tool. So if you yourself just want additional tools to assist you in different areas of your life, then that'll be a good tool for you. And of course, if you got sons, it'll be a good tool to watch him grow as well. Have a YouTube channel as well with different segments on there for not only men, but of course, their partners can use to gain insight and helpful information. Fellow clinicians also use that. And somebody spoke of it earlier. So if I don't cover everything within this time limit tonight, it is a lot of different videos on my YouTube channel that you can benefit from. The YouTube is Men to Heal as well. And I also created a board game for adults and couples. So it's a good tool for you if you run out of ideas for your date nights. The board game is called Cheesy Dates. It's the same size as a Monopoly board game, and it comes with dices and pawn pieces and stuff like that. One card deck is full of different date ideas, so you can increase the spontaneity within your relationships, you know, just in case that your lady get tired of just doing a dinner and movie. And the other card deck is for those tough questions that you should ask regardless of what stage of the relationship you're in.
No, it's not what I tell you. You put 3 8s.
So it's just a helpful tool overall. So if you've been married for 20 years or you're looking to start dating, it's a good game, and that'll provide insight to you and your partner. So tonight, one of the topic suggestions was trauma, and you know, that's what we're gonna talk about. So me being a therapist, my caseload is comprised of people within different spectrums of different walks of life. So I see a lot of males, whether that's boys as young as 6 and all the way up to maybe 70 plus is on my caseload. But I also see couples as well. And, you know, Black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. So everybody who feel like they need help and support, I've just been fortunate enough to be a resource. But what I found is a lot of people, specifically the African-American men, have become numb and desensitized to a lot of different things, being that we are hypervigilant and going through a traumatic state pretty much every day. So I figured that would be a good topic for me to discuss tonight. And, you know, hopefully nobody is going through nothing or can gain insight or enhance the knowledge that you already have about trauma. You know, hopefully I can be able to answer your questions, because again, a lot of people, specifically men, become numb and desensitized to it because they are living this thing every day. So whether it's different scenarios and situations, Whether it's the police getting behind you, you become tense or hypervigilant, you know, so it's also important to recognize that trauma can lead to stressful situations. The mind and the body is connected. So those physical symptoms can become mental symptoms and vice versa. Those mental symptoms can become physical symptoms. Heart disease is the number one killer among men. So we definitely want to ensure that we are focusing on being overall healthy, our wellness and things. So part of the ways we can do that is identifying our triggers, knowing what trauma is, and of course, building that resiliency to it.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar, trauma is pretty much a response that is deeply rooted within distress from a disturbing event that overwhelms your ability to cope. It might cause you feelings of, you know, helplessness. It might diminish your sense of self, your ability to focus on certain things, and probably touch on a wide range of emotions that you probably didn't even know that were there, you know. And some of the emotional signs of trauma can include, of course, sadness, anger, fear, denial, and shame, which we also can see in grief in certain situations. But those things can then lead to, of course, the nightmares, the insomnia, difficulties within relationships, and of course, emotional outbursts. The difficulties in relationships are important because if you don't address your traumas now, they'll manifest themselves in situations in which we weren't expecting. So that could be your marriage, that could be your job, that could be in the community. So that's why it's important to be able to understand what your traumas are as well as your triggers so you can prevent certain things. And what a lot of people, specifically men, don't recognize is the physical symptoms of trauma. You know, one, men have to do a better job of getting physicals and, you know, prevention of other illnesses, and early detection is one way to do that. So the physical signs of trauma is, of course, you can get nausea, you can get dizziness, altered sleep patterns. So if you are in a position to where you're thinking like, you know, I just can't go to sleep tonight, or I'm falling asleep or waking up throughout the night, you know, it might be something deeper there that you might want to focus on. And of course, the change in appetite too, that also can be a sign of trauma as well. Headaches, those are physical symptoms that people probably don't associate with stress, which is one of those things that is associated with stress, in addition to gastrointestinal issues. So yes, gastrointestinal issues is also big within the trauma state, and depression as well. So if you got different traumas that are presenting itself that goes unaddressed, it can then increase to PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And of course, you probably can also get depression, anxiety, dissociative identity disorders from that as well. And some people even, of course, turn to a substance, whether that's alcohol, marijuana, or either some, you know, harder, depending on where you are, depending on the type of trauma that you potentially encountered. There is a difference though between post-traumatic stress disorder and the stages before that. So a lot of people, when you hear it in the movies or you hear people talking about trauma, you probably are familiar with PTSD, but a lot of people don't know that before PTSD, it is acute stress disorder. So acute stress disorder is the traumatic event within that first month, that first 30 days. And to be honest with you, not every person traumatized will develop PTSD, you know, depending on where you are and what type of trauma it was. You know, some people develop symptoms like I mentioned before, but they go away after a few weeks. So again, if it ends before that month and above, then it's just acute stress disorder, you know, and you can pretty much continue to go on with your day. But if it lasts beyond that month, that's when you hear PTSD. And within our society, people overuse certain words and not knowing what they are, or diagnose people and not knowing what the proper diagnostic criteria is. So that's a little bit of insight for people. So anything above a month is in fact PTSD. So when the symptoms last, of course, beyond the month, it's serious, you know, because it's affecting your functioning, it's affecting your relationships, it's affecting so many different things that you deal with on a daily basis. And of course, it can then lead to panic attacks, depression, suicidal thoughts, just different feelings that you're unable to control. And again, some people then turn to a substance, whether it's drugs or feeling like they're being isolated, not completing our daily task. And then that's when you seriously need to Probably figure out if you can talk to somebody, whether it's somebody within crisis or somebody doing psychotherapy or just a hotline or family and friends too. You know, you probably can find that support within them and then they can recommend you to somebody. Or of course you can email me or send me a message or whatever and I'll connect you with a resource. And there are different types of traumas, but a lot of people tend to not speak about them. They just put trauma in one box. But there are small T's and big T's. So some of the small T's are like just life-changing events that probably happen, whether you move into a new neighborhood or your relationship ended, like you've been married for 20 years now, all of a sudden you get a divorce. That can be traumatic for some people. Personal conflicts between you, a coworker or a teammate or something like that. And a lot of things within that little T category that a lot of people don't focus on or talk about is custody battles. I personally had to go through a custody battle with my previous wife, my daughter's mom, and that was a traumatic experience too. So a lot of people don't associate that, but going back and forth in court, fighting for the ability to see my child, you know, child support and all those things are often ignored to the symptomology of what can take place with the male. So that can itself can also be traumatic. But when we move to large T's, what people tend to focus on most and talk about the most is, of course, the terrorist attack like 9/11s and stuff like that, or the nature catastrophes like Hurricane Katrina's, the hurricanes that happened in Jersey and stuff like that. Of course, mass shootings, those things are big T's when it comes to trauma, and sexual assault, like the rape victims and stuff. So people tend to know about those big T's, but the small T's that I mentioned earlier tend to get downplayed as if they don't affect people on a day-to-day, which is not true. So trauma is one of those things that can affect you directly or indirectly. So it doesn't have to be something that you experience firsthand. Like you don't have to be the one who got shot or went to court or whatever the case is. It can be something that you witness. So you can witness or observe these different events that I just described and have the same feelings and hypervigilance and nightmares and stuff that that the person who actually been through it had as well. So that's something to definitely pay attention to, because you never know how you're going to be affected by a certain event, regardless of how grand it was or how minute it was. You know, we as people have different levels of resiliency and different levels of how we are impacted by things. So the different type of ways to treat trauma is, of course, is not really a cure for trauma. It's just no quick fixes. Like you have to go through the process. Like you don't have to suffer or be in an association of just being alone. You don't have to do isolation. And of course, you can have a different therapist that is trauma focused or trauma informed to ensure that you are building the resiliencies in the different areas of your life. And of course, psychotherapy is something that I do, which is, you know, pretty much talk therapy. We are identifying different things. My modality is cognitive behavior therapy as well as reality therapy. So we touching on what's actually happening, what's going on around you, some prevention steps, some trigger identification, just different things like that. And of course, now people are migrating to EMDR, which is a phenomenal way to assist people within trauma. So of course, if you're seeking a therapist, you want to ask those questions so they can better assist you. And it's okay to interview different therapists up until you find the right one, because you're paying for one, and then two, you just want to make sure they're going to be a good fit for you, so you can continue to have a better life or enhance the life that you already possess. You know, because again, like oftentimes we want to ensure that the people vicariously around us are not affected by things that we're carrying. So it's okay to get the support and help that we need. And also for trauma, some people tend to do hypnosis or increase their mindfulness, which is wonderful. So that's white noise, yoga, you know, just different things like that. It's also trauma sensitive yoga that you can do too, because you'll pretty much release a lot of tension within your body. So you're not as stressed or high strung as you are, as hypervigilant as you are. And then of course, if it does continue to escalate or continue to plateau, then you can talk to your doctor or nurse practitioner about getting some antidepressants, because it could be potentially a chemical imbalance that's causing you to stay within those states. So again, with trauma, it's definitely one of those things to where you want to identify and understand what's going to trigger you to put you back in that situation or have you regress in certain situations. So trauma is one of those things. Again, there's no time limit to it. Like after you exceed that first month, it becomes PTSD. So it's been case studies to where um, gunshot victims, rape victims, been suppressing emotions and feelings of different events that happened to them for years and years. It's been victims that didn't think about or didn't have any reference of the event, and then all of a sudden they smell something in the grocery store or some in the mall and put them back in that state. So that's why it's important to know your triggers, because at any time anything can happen. So triggers are those things that pretty much external circumstances that may produce an uncomfortable emotional or psychiatric symptom within you. And that can be anything. That can be causing you anxiety or panic attack, despair, negative self-talk. It can even be a violent act or substance use. All of those things can, stimulate something within you. So it's definitely important that you identify those. And if we don't recognize those triggers, then of course we have to find a way to prevent certain things. If not, it's probably going to cause a downward spiral, not only within our lives, but of course our relationships, or carry over to the community, or carry over to the work setting. And the last thing we want to intentionally do is affect or hurt other people. I said intentionally do because oftentimes, like you don't know you're hurting somebody. And again, like you've been this way, like I'm 36, so I've been this way my whole life. I don't know that I'm affecting somebody unless they tell me they're uncomfortable. So that's why it's definitely important who we surround ourselves with and who we can rely on for support and not be enabled in essence. So when you identify your triggers to trauma or to depression or to any other diagnosis or something, it's definitely important that you become aware and develop different plans to deal with those triggers and those events. You might want to increase your ability to have different coping skills, reduce all the severe symptoms that you might be feeling, whether those are psychological symptoms or physiological symptoms. And some of the triggers too for people, regardless of where you are, regardless of how manly you are or how dominant you are, or all of those things. Like none of those things matter. Some people will probably still be triggered, like if they're yelled at, if they are aggressive sounding noises, like you're hyper vigilant. I know for a lot of Black males, of course, when the police get behind you, regardless if you got a substance on you or if you got clean title and everything, it's still that fear of, am I gonna get pulled over? What's gonna happen if I do get pulled over? So those things are different uncomfortable acts that we tend to go through. So the paranoia, being around people who treat us badly, work stress, those things can be triggers in which we want to identify as well. So, and also a lot of people don't associate triggers or the trauma related to the anniversary dates. So it can be a traumatic experience that occurred, like 9/11, for example. Like pretty much everybody within the country knows 9/11 is one of those sad times, you know what I'm saying? Because you probably know somebody who died in those tower attacks, terrorist attacks, or of course the other dates, whether it's correlating close to you or not, whether it was a car crash or a shooting victim or something like that. So dates are definitely important. Those are triggers that you want to identify with, and then prepare yourself. And also a lot of people don't know too that the news can be frightening, so be cautious of how much you are digesting as far as information. All information is not good information, so it's up to you to decipher which is, and of course moderate it. You don't want to be in a spot or in a position to where you're only intaking stuff that's going to cause you detriment or cause you psychological pain at the end of the day. So whether things are being embedded in you subconsciously or you intentionally looking for this stuff. So that can go for social media as well. So moderate those things. Just make sure you're not putting yourself in a position to feel overwhelmed. A lot of family conflict can be a trigger as well and can cause a traumatic response too. I spoke of earlier the court situation that different men feel by going back and forth to court, have to battle to get custody or visitation. Those things can definitely put a strain on how you move day to day. Excuse me. So a lot of people also be triggered or have something stirring up within them if they feel like they're being judged or teased or criticized or put down. So those things are definitely important, especially because a lot of men have that mindset of they have to provide or they have to be in a certain image so they wouldn't be viewed as weak or, soft or whatever the case is. So hopefully you're around people who don't make you feel that way.
Okay, Brother James, sorry to interrupt you. We have a
No, go ahead, go
question.
ahead.
We have a question in the chat.
Sure.
How does imposter syndrome play into trauma? And any brothers that have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is one of those things that a lot of people tend to not know about. So for those who don't know, imposter syndrome is a phenomenon that probably has increased within the last 5 years or so. And that's pretty much something that we've been dealing with for the longest, but they just put a name on it recently. So if it's a situation to where you deserve to be in this room, you got the same credentials as somebody else, or if you got the same, if not more experience than somebody else, but you still feel like you're inferior, you still feel like you don't belong, that's a sign of imposter syndrome. That plays into trauma because it could have been something that happened to you when you was younger, or if a parent or a neighbor or somebody said, oh, you're not good enough, or just was hard or critical on you. That's something that you can constantly remind yourself of when it is time for you to ask for this promotion or time for you to take the lead role in whatever task it is. So that's probably where they go hand in hand. And of course, it's too much to dive into now, but it is a YouTube video on my page on imposter syndrome. And we pretty much dive into all of that actually. So to whomever that person is, they can go to the YouTube and of course watch the video with myself and Steven Lewis on imposter syndrome. But he breaks down a lot of different reasons why we have imposter syndrome. A lot of Black men tend to have it because we are creators and innovators, but the credit is oftentimes not there. And when it is there, we still feel like you don't belong in that room, or you didn't earn this spot. Like there's so many people with, like, just think about your office now. You go to work, like you probably got a degree, you probably got experience, and then it's probably a boss that got the job because they played golf with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that make you feel? Like you had to work twice as hard, you had to do XYZ, and this person just got it based off word of mouth or based off reputation. So those things are embedded. And then when you think about when you was younger, you seen the same thing happen. You was a dominant athlete, you practice hard, you ran extra laps or whatever the case is, but then your coach, his son got the starting role. You know what I'm saying? Like, so all of those things can continue to manifest itself throughout the life. So that's why it's a correlation. And that's why, again, a lot of people don't know or become numb and desensitized to certain stuff. So good question. I'm glad they was able to ask that. Hopefully I answered it.
So Brother James, someone put into the chat, Jesus, he's speaking to me. That's Paul. Paul, you want to say anything? Paul?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so no, I just, I've been going through a lot of work lately, and the first thing you said that really struck me was if the feeling lasts more than a month. And I literally just had a conversation with a former coworker, and she was basically breaking down the effects of stress on the body. And for me, I was chalking up a lot of the feelings that I've been having within the past, I want to say 5 to 6 months. I was chucking it up to getting older. I just turned 39. And then when she said it, I kind of took a step back and I said, wait a minute. I'm an avid runner. I've been going to the gym. I do really good as far as taking care of myself, watching what I eat, depending on the day it is. And so I started to think about my body breaking down in reactions. And then I remembered that I was I was losing sleep because of the confrontation with my assistant principal. And I was so agitated because I felt boxed in. I felt boxed in because I felt like I had no recourse because when the way she was talking to me, if she was a man, I'd punch her in the face, right? And I felt emasculated. I felt weak. I felt inferior. My intelligence is consistently insulted and all these things. And I was internalizing it to the point, to the point that my wife just was like, when I came home, she's like, "You're bringing this home." She's like, "You're bringing this lady." And she was right. I was tossing and turning the night. I literally could not sleep to the point where I woke up, went to the gym at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm lifting and I'm just packing on weight. I'm packing on weight, packing on weight. And then I realized that I'm like shoulder pressing almost 225 pounds. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I shouldn't be able to do this. But it was the adrenaline and the anger that was in me. And when you said that, I was like, wait a minute, like my intelligence has been, attacked, and I still feel sort of anxiety coming into the building where now I have to I have to prep myself for entering the workspace when I used to love walking in the building. So.
Thanks. Thanks for being so vulnerable. Thanks so much for sharing, Paul. Appreciate that.
Definitely appreciate that. And I definitely commend you for not giving her your power. You was fortunate enough to put it in the weight room, which is a good thing, which is a good place to off-put that. And I would definitely encourage you to not take it home. I don't know what career field you in, but and it sounds like you got a supportive partner, which is a phenomenal thing. So, but you don't want to continue to take that home because now she may internalize that as well and feel like she has to do more to assist you, which is probably going to in return give her additional stress. So, if you can reduce the amount that you take home, it's okay to take it home occasionally, like, yo, my day sucked or whatever the case is, but you don't want to constantly do that because now she's probably going, oh man, he need a new job, or let me do what I got. You don't want her to be on eggshells thinking that she's going to trigger you, or, because displacement happened. And for those who don't know about displacement, that's pretty, like, he couldn't fire off at his boss. So oftentimes that displacement goes to the innocent people, whether it's the young child that heard the background or your partner, why you begging the pots and pans, cooking so loud, but your real anger was to that person at work, so that's why it's important for us to understand these things and be able to identify as triggers. So I would definitely continue to encourage you to put it in the weight room, but also identify ways that it can change at work. So whether that's you talking to a supervisor or having a one-on-one meeting with her and see what can change, just you might got to set those boundaries. You know what I'm saying? And it might be uncomfortable as well because, the traditional setting of work, just that 9 to 5, you got you're probably your first line supervisor, then their supervisor, and then probably, other officials within the chain. So you have to navigate that and see what that looks like. But it sounds like you in a good position to where it's not going to affect you at work. You just want to be careful on how much you bringing home.
Thanks so much, James. James, you mind that we ask some questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Donald and then Bert.
Mm-hmm.
You have to unmute yourself, Donald.
Yeah, I posted in the chat, but to my brother Paul, I want to say I had a job that I thought everything was okay. Normal stuff, blood pressure medicine, all kinds of stuff was going on in my body. I attributed it to my age. And when I switched jobs, my blood pressure changed. They took me off the medication. I started losing weight. I had no idea that it was the stress of the job that was causing that problem. So my brothers, I want to be mindful of that. To So my brother James, I have a question for you, and I wanted to speak to a little bit about adverse childhood experiences and how they play a role in both our physical health and mental health as adults, as well as our paternity.
Yeah. So I don't know how many people are familiar with the ACE questionnaire or test, but so ACE is ACE, adverse childhood experiences, and it's pretty much referred to a range of negative situations that can impact where you are growing up. So that can be trauma, that can be witnessing alcohol or substance use or physical neglect from a parental figure, whether your parents got divorced or whether your parents had domestic violence within the house, you grew up in a bad neighborhood. So the adverse childhood experience is a series of questions, and they try to predict based on those lifestyle criteria that I just mentioned. So the difficulties within that, the study pretty much, I would say it's new. I'm not a fan of it, but it came out in 95 or 96. The CDC and Kaiser, they pretty much put this thing together. For a long time, I didn't agree with it because, like I spoke of earlier, a lot of Black people deal with these things as normal. You know what I'm saying? So to me, viewing a study, taking a study, viewing different case studies, it felt like it was pointing a target to label our demographic, because realistically, like, how many times, if I ask now, when you were younger, how many times you and all your cousins stayed over your grandma's house and slept on the floor? Like, that was no, to me, that was normal to go over grandma's house, all the cousins over there, we sleeping on the floor playing. But to the people of the study, they would view that as unstable, unhealthy living, just different stuff. But to Black people, it's like, yo, that's what we do. So that's why I didn't agree with the study. Is just so many different subgroups that they have in their research focus. And then it also discusses how the physical and mental health well-being of all ages also are predicted within the study, like I spoke of earlier. So depending on your score, you'll be low risk for certain conditions like depression, asthma, cancer, and diabetes was in there too. Like, again, all of this come from this one particular study. There's a series of questions, and they're predicting that you may have one of these. So hypertension, diabetes, cancer, in addition to mental health issues. And of course, reduce risky behavior, like your drinking, all those things. So it all depends on where you are within that. So the study is 10 different questions, and they pretty much yes or no. That's another reason why I didn't agree with it, because there's no feedback and you can't really explain or elaborate on your answer. You know what I'm saying? So if the answer is, did you stay over, have you ever slept on the floor? And you say yes, they're viewing it as a yes, but you can't explain, I slept on the floor because,
That's what we do.
yeah, or my uncle or somebody was sleep. You know what I mean? Like, you can't explain your answer. So yes or no to me is always, it's too basic because they're closing the questions. But outside of that, it's people like it. I just tend to disagree with it, just from, I guess, who my target people I serve population wise, because again, like, to them it's a part of life, how they are, until you see something different, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody in California making $1 million, of course their scores are going to be different from somebody who lives in an urban area who's living check to check. And to me, that's not a fair assessment of a study in which they're using to classify different people. So again, it can happen. But again, the study, 10 questions, and it determines if you will be at risk for hypertension, high blood pressure, cancer, diabetes, and stuff like that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Donald, that's good. If so, we could go to Bert. Bert has a question that he put into the chat.
Thank you. Yes, I can say it out. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you can say it.
Yeah, so my advice was basically, what advice do you have for Black men when you find yourself one of the few black faces in white spaces, you know, especially when you start to think about the amount of us that actually get past a certain level of education, a certain level in our career, you look around, you're the only person in your department, and there's that pressure to kind of represent. Maybe there's pressure to feel like you're a checkbox or a quota that could lead to stress and trauma and dealing with things that maybe your other counterparts don't have to deal with. So what would you say if you find yourself as a black face in a white space and there's not many of you to kind of navigate that?
Um, the James answer is have fun. And I say that wholeheartedly. Um, One, I create my own opportunities. So entrepreneurs, like I don't have a boss per se, but I've been in spaces where I was the only black person, and I definitely made sure that I was there. And not only I knew I was there, but they knew I was there. One, because like you said, your education level is equal, or if not surpassed theirs. Your experience is probably the same thing, if not surpassed theirs. So, to me, to walk on eggshells or to feel in to feel inferior would be dishonest to yourself, and then that's something that you got to live with once you leave that situation. What I mean by have fun is be you, be your authentic self. um so I'm fortunate enough to speak all over the country. I'll be in St. Lucia in May, Dominican Republic in September, and then a host of other places domestically, Texas, California, Delaware. I got a TED Talk coming up at the end of this month, actually. But I'm always in a hoodie or a t-shirt. My tattoos are exposed. I'm wearing a fitted and sweatpants, and you can see behind me a different pair of kicks. So it's oftentimes people in that space with bow ties or ties on or whatever it is. Because for me, I break those barriers of what traditional professionalism is, because all of those things to me are rooted in previous white supremacy. So when I say have fun, when I say be you and be authentic, that's what I mean. And you'll be surprised of how many people um, reach out to me based on the fact of I'm doing things my way. I don't mean it to be in a derogatory way. Of course, people are gonna view it as however they view it. Some people gonna be like, "Oh, he ghetto as hell," but then it's gonna be other people like, "Yo, he's talking to me. He looked just like me." I'm glad I was able to see somebody like me in this space, and I can, emulate that. So for me, that's why I do it, and that's why I will continue to do it. For you, I don't know what your space look like or how you want to navigate that, but I definitely would encourage you to just be as authentic as possible, because if not, you're gonna have to deal with those issues not only from an inward standpoint of identity crisis, but an outward standpoint to where you always looking like I'm uncomfortable in this setting. And I seen it happen in grad school. In grad school, I was the only black male in my cohort. We had another person, she was like Pacific Islander or something, but everybody else was white. You know what I'm saying? So just be yourself. People gonna have that perception, whatever they think about you, regardless. But you have to think differently about yourself.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Thanks. Joaquin?
Good evening. What's up, brothers? Thank you, brother, for sharing. And yeah, I had a question. You mentioned triggers, and I know, like for me, a lot of times.
Hey, Joaquin, you got muted. You got muted. Sorry.
All right, my bad. Yeah, so you mentioned triggers, and I know, like for me, like it's not easy to or always know when it is a trigger, or if it's a trigger that's being triggered from your past, by something somebody says or does. So my question is, how do we know that it's a trigger? So like for me, I always thought it was just my wife pushing my buttons at the wrong time and I'd lose my mind, until I found out it had something to do with my mother. So my question is, how can we know if it's a trigger? What can we do to find out? So like when Paul was like for me, I know like I can't people can't make me feel a way. It's something that's inside me that gets triggered to make me feel a certain way. So I'll look at why am I feeling and where's that feeling coming from? So my question is, how can we, like in the moment or maybe later, what can we do to find out if it's a trigger from the past and not actually the situation that's getting us twisted?
Good question. Research, my brother. And I don't mean like other information. I mean research who you are. And you mentioned some when you first started, it was not directly your wife, it was your mother. So something that you can research in your spare time is attachment styles. And it's a video on my YouTube about attachment styles too, but attachment styles are those things that will allow you to be able to identify if it is something or something that may have taken place within your childhood that you didn't deal with previously or that you observed. And that goes back to what I spoke of earlier about displacement, you know. So it could be a situation to where you are viewing like even the hot topic for the past couple of weeks is the Will Smith joint. You know, a lot of people say the slap thing came from if you heard his book or read his book, you'll know that when he was younger, he couldn't defend his mom. He's seen her being abused or whatever the case is. So in that moment, a lot of people can correlate that he was in that moment defending the honor of his mother opposed to the honor of Jada. So attachment styles will assist you with that. So it's 4 different attachment styles. I would encourage you to figure those out, learn those, identify those, and then continue to process different things that you're going through, whether it is a direct trigger from your wife or the situation or anybody for that matter. And regardless if it is your wife or your mom or any other figure within your past or your present right now, triggers are one of those things that you have to be able to control and identify. And that's not on your wife to, you know what I mean? Like she's not in the position to prevent those things. That's on you to be able to identify your triggers and prevent escalating or reacting and responding a certain way.
Thank you. Anyone else had a question in the chat that they want to ask? Anything? Yes, Ishmael.
I put a question in the chat room. How do we break the algorithm of trauma in the social media age? Like you were alluded to before about the Will Smith. It's like that's constantly in our feed. We had a person make an NFT meme about it and make money off of it. And then you see other people making skits about it. So how do we break that algorithm of trauma?
Yeah. So I spoke up earlier on, you know, doing things in moderation and being careful what you digest. And social media is one of those things. The regular media, the movies, all of those things, you have to do it within moderation. You got to set those boundaries for yourself. So whether that's you telling yourself, like for me personally, I don't touch my phone after 9 o'clock. You know, if everybody I need are important to me are here with me at 9 o'clock. So everybody else can wait until I wake up the next morning. I tend to not get on social media certain points throughout the day because I know the news come on at noon. Do I really want to see that 3 people got shot within my neighborhood? You know, so it's up to you to identify how you're going to moderate those things. But also you got to remember too that we live in a society based on capitalism. So if somebody can capitalize off the negativity, then they will. And you know, it depends on where you are within that spectrum. Some people want to break that story, or some people want to drop the NFT and get paid for it because they can, not knowing that it is going to subconsciously affect different people, even if it doesn't affect Will directly because he got 450 million and he probably don't know who made the meme or the EFT or what NFT or whatever, but you who probably know somebody who was a victim of being slapped or know somebody who you know, had situations or whatever, like those things can affect you directly. So it's up to you to moderate, you know, your intake of those things.
Thank you, Brother James. Brother Donald?
Yeah, you gave us one in terms of limiting our time on social media, but can you give us like maybe 3 more practical things that Black fathers can do to support their mental health?
Black fathers can do to support that mental health? Yeah, increase your, increase your self-care. Like, how much attention are you really paying to self-care? And I know in some instances, even in practice, I heard a couple athletes tell me that they don't do yoga because that's for women, which is not true. Even if you're an athlete, doing yoga will increase your flexibility, your dexterity, and so many other things. So I had to re-educate them on that. So yoga, mindfulness, be careful what you digest, not just from a social media standpoint, but of course a nutrition standpoint. You want to ensure that you're overall well and healthy as possible. And a lot of people don't know that getting physicals is also a part of self-care and will assist you overall well-being to prevent certain things that can potentially happen to you. Because the last thing you want to do is be surprised of a medical issue that you could have prevented by getting your yearly checkup. So those are a couple ways. You also can listen to white noise before you go to sleep, or listen to affirmations. I know for me, I'm big on affirming myself. So when I open my laptop, I'm saying a list of words. When I brush my teeth or shave my head in the morning, it's a list of words, so just, you have to affirm yourself. And that'll be a good thing for my man who asked the question earlier too about his work situation. So you got to remember who you are. So when you do encounter those people who don't see your value or your worth, you already know what it is because you've seen it this morning. You telling yourself when you open that binder up or whatever the case is. So those are some additional ways that you can do it.
So just a quick question. So when you say a list of words, like for example, the list of words that's on your mirror or on your laptop.
Yeah. So for me, I do short sentences, I do words, but it can be something as simple as I'm a great father, I'm a great husband, I know my worth, I'm gonna conquer today, bold, selfless. It can be anything to make me ensure that I'm constantly affirming myself and me being authentically me. So that's important to me because, again, when I open a book and I'm doing a task, I got to remember that so I can stay focused. I got to remember that some little ones are relying on me, and again, like, you don't want to be in a situation like my man at the job, knowing he deserved a certain thing, but the boss is hounding him on something else, because realistically, our parents dealt with something, gave it to us. His boss is probably dealing with something on her own and giving it to him, so all of those things matter. So you can't control none of that. He can't control what's taking place from his boss at work. We couldn't control how our parents passed us, whatever they passed us. We can only control what we can control. So what we can control and what we can establish for ourselves is those positive self-talk, is those affirmations, is that healthy relationship with ourselves, treating ourselves good, whether that is a spa day or, just relaxing. And I posted on my social media the other day about rest, because for a long time, like, I would rest or I would sit there, but still think about everything. So the post was, it's not really rest if you're thinking about everything else. Like, rest is just rest. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be blank. You're supposed to be in the moment. So, those are little things that you can do as well, like actually rest.
Thank you. Ishmael? You're muted.
Welcome, Mike. What tools can we use to help men become vulnerable?
Vulnerability is one of those personal things that he will have to decide for himself. And depending on where he is within that spectrum, because, like, it's no set destination of vulnerability or healing, because like realistically, vulnerability to you could be like crying in front of your lady, but vulnerability to the next person could just be telling his lady, like, hey, I had a rough day or whatever, so it's a spectrum. It's not really a key set standard for what it looks like, because, again, each male is different. And for a male who, like myself, like, I've been vulnerable, I would say, my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was cool as a young kid telling somebody, like, bro, don't talk to me like that, or nah, that don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? But to somebody else, they probably took it their whole life and now don't know how to say certain things without being cantankerous, or how to respond when they're met with resistance. You know, so vulnerability looks different person to person. It has to be something that you establish as your vulnerable limit. So, you know, again, it can be a small step. It can just be you opening up to tell somebody, hey, when I was younger, I went through this and that's why I react this way. Or, hey, I like it when you do XYZ. Can you do more of that? You know what I'm saying? So it can start with you or them being expressive, and in return, they might view that as a sign of, oh man, you was open with me. You gave me what I didn't even know in that moment. And of course, that happens and it helps within our intimate relationships with our partners and our children. You know what I'm saying? Like how I grew up, like I grew up in as a ward of the state. I was in foster care and group home, and I emancipated myself at 16. And for me, I felt that was something that my partner should know. You know what I'm saying? So I ensured that I gave that to her so she'll know why I react a certain way, or why I feel like, you know, I have my views of how to respond to authority. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want her to be uncomfortable if we're in public and I respond a certain way, or I, you know, because it can be like, dang, why he don't care? You know, I do care. I just, you know what I mean? We just in different places. You know, my view is different. So I gave her the, you know, I did my due diligence and made sure that she understand that. But to somebody else, they might have kept that a secret, and then it presented itself in public, and they, you know, it's a shock to everybody. So it depends on where you are. Hopefully that answers your question.
Beautiful. So Brother James, I know you're going to talk about, we're running out of time, about resilience, but before that, Malcolm has a question for you.
Okay.
Hi. I just wanted like your experience on like how would you deal with going about getting joint custody. I'm pretty sure everybody been through like baby mama drama and stuff like that. But being that the courts are not too friendly with me or ourselves as it goes for most. But how would you go about that without going through the courts? Like as far as like even teaching the other parent how to be a little bit more involved of some sort.
Yeah. So I don't know what state you're in. I'm in Virginia. You know, so obviously the laws may differ, but where you are, I would definitely suggest, if you are in that situation, to request a guardian ad litem. And most states have them, or it's probably something that you can request. But pretty much, your guardian ad litem is a representative of the courts, who's typically a lawyer that will only view the best interest of the child. So it's not the interest of you, it's not the interest of mom, because of course, like you said, mom may, you know, put some stuff out there that might be untrue, or you may have not been your best on whatever the case is. But the guardian ad litem is looking at what's the best interest for the child. Is the child best interest to have time with dad on these days? Is it best for y'all to have joint custody, or whatever the case? And I think it's been a detriment that a lot of men don't know those things when they do enter the court system. So anyway, typically the guardian ad litem may do a home visit. They may interview the child, or they may just, you know, interview you and mom and see what's the disconnect. You know what I'm saying? But that is something that you can do, and that's a place that you can start, because I definitely think it'd be benefiting to you to have a neutral, unbiased party to say, to go against. Like if mom say, well, dad doesn't cook, or he doesn't have furniture, or whatever the case is, this third party can say, no, I've been to dad's house. The kid has their own living space, or the kid can do XYZ with dad just as well as they can do with mom. And a lot of people, you know, that'll help a lot of people, opposed to you feeling like you have to fight for yourself, or had to expend, you know, so much money going back and forth to court, paying a lawyer out of your pocket. So guardian ad litem is typically free in most cases. Again, like I don't know what state you're in. So
I'm in New York. I'm in New York, by the way.
okay, yeah. So it's hard for me to answer that question because I'm not in New York, but you can.
In New York, it's called the law guardian. That's what we call them in New York, law guardian.
So yeah, so it probably sounds like the same thing, but they can step in and again, they free here in Virginia. Like you request one and the courts will give you one, but a lot of people don't know about it, so now take advantage of it. So now again, this guy is in court fighting for his life and fighting to see his kid when somebody all they had to do is say, hey, you can get a guardian ad litem, they can do visits or they can check on this information that mom is giving. Because like I've been there to where mom said certain things that was untrue, and it was, you know, like it was just wild stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like nothing too detrimental, but I'm just viewing it like, what? Like, you
Absolutely,
know,
'cause
that
it
ain't even
becomes
my
a game
character,
of trying to win. It becomes, yeah,
opposed to the best interest for the child. Again,
right.
that's why that third party is more like, well, that doesn't matter because like one of the issues when I went to court, my daughter's mom, she said, well, my mom can just watch her, you know what I'm saying? And so the guardian ad litem was like, well, if Mr. Harris can hire a nanny or daycare or his sister can watch her, it's the same thing. You know, so little stuff like that that you don't think of, they pretty much advocate for the child and not you or mom. So it definitely is beneficial. So I would definitely encourage you to research that and where you are.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
So, James, can you speak to us on resilience?
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, resilience is one of those things that we have to develop, in that we all are different beings. We all go through stuff differently. So resilience is definitely that psychological quality that allows some people to bounce back when they get knocked down or when they met with adversity, all those things, because again, we're living in a society to where adversity will happen, whether that's a court battle, whether that's stress from the job or the relationship. So you have to have some type of resiliency. So rather than letting those difficulties or traumatic events or failures to overcome you or drain you, you learn ways to, you know, stand up, have emotional resilience, have a healthy way and a plan to move forward with whatever the task is. So you can definitely create resilience, like having a positive attitude, being optimistic, some of the stuff that we spoke of earlier. And a lot of times it's difficult for people to regulate their emotions, being that they are in certain situations, especially when imposter syndrome is kicking in, or especially when that court date is approaching and you gotta, you know, advocate for why you should have your children, which is the wildest thing in the world. You know, so it all depends too, because you got different environmental factors, you got life circumstances that play a role in how you become resilient. And a lot of people don't know that resiliency can come from the genes that are passed down from your parents. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but probably within the last 20 years, they probably, it was some introduced called epigenetics, which is the study of genes. And they realized that Black people have a higher rate of stress, anxiety, and trauma and things like that, because of course it's passed down from slavery and different things like that. So our chemical and body anatomy makeup is way different than any other subgroup based on people who have similar experiences. And that's another reason why I don't like the ACE. So of course, those things can definitely have us respond different and have us develop different, you know, because like, again, we been living in these circumstances, so we think it's normal. We think it's a part of life, not knowing that we don't have to deal with certain things, you know. So that's also being able to identify resilience. So a lot of people think trauma makes you less resilient, but not necessarily, because if you've gone through trauma, you definitely been through something, which means it can heighten your resiliency. Because if you're going through this, you learn from it, you grow from it. You know what I'm saying? You continue to develop ways to identify and how to prevent this thing from happening again. It happens, you're not gonna get me again. Like you probably heard that or you probably said that before. All right, cool. You got me one time, you're not gonna get me again, because I know how you're gonna move now. So those things can definitely assist you in developing you know, skills in order to do that, whether it's substance use, whether it's different things that negatively impact the way that you cope throughout. So resiliency, um, depending on where you are within the spectrum of your life, it can be taught. So it can be something that you assist your children with developing now. You as a grown adult man, it might be beneficial for you to learn different type of resiliency things, because of course life will continue to happen. So as you continue to grow and develop, you definitely want those skills because you're going to continue to experience different stuff. Now, whether those things be positive things you experience or negative things you experience, you definitely want to ensure that you are being able to modify, being able to make change immediately. Because my man spoke up earlier with his boss situation, like what if they had cuts and now he got a new boss and this boss come in worse than the current boss, you know what I'm saying? So he got to figure out now how to modify that. Like, oh man, it sucked before, but now I got to figure out, you know, if I want to put 300 pounds on that shoulder machine now. So you have to modify wherever you are, because again, things will continue to happen. So it definitely takes skill to build resiliency, because it's like you're learning to do it unless you were developed with it. So fortunately for us, we are in a position to break those generational curses and have that positive parenting moment to where we develop in our children to recognize certain things and to overcome certain things, in which we probably seen and probably just had to deal with, you know. So we're fortunate. Like you can continue to go through pain and be disappointed without becoming overwhelmed, you know, or you can find ways to counteract that, you know, find ways to continue to get better at it, like having healthy habits, you know, getting enough sleep. Of course, you can eat well, you can exercise, reduce the stress that you might have. So again, like that depends on where you are within your lifestyle. Your well-being is definitely important, and a lot of people don't take that overall thing as a possibility of having, but you definitely can be happy. You definitely can be in a position to where you're developing a good, healthy, whole lifestyle. So be sure that you're nurturing your close relationship. Like this is a good group. I'm sure you guys can bounce ideas off each other. And it got that universality feel to it, because you never know who's going through what, you know, whether that is a parenting situation or a spouse situation or somebody dealing with some like the boss situation. So those things definitely assist in building your resiliency as well. And of course, you can continue to move forward. Like don't pretend it's not there. So just identify those unpleasant acts and try to make change to them within your range without becoming too frustrated. And of course, like the goal is to not have a lot of things bother you, especially those things that you can't control. It ain't really nothing you can do about it. So it's no point of wearing those things and taking them home, or, you know, creating more adversity or having even impact or increase in reckless behavior. So for a long time, realistically, a lot of men tend to become promiscuous, you know, when they are met with adversity. And a lot of people don't associate that with adversity, but, you know, it to me, it's a part of it. Just like substance use, just like, you know, being reckless or whatever the case is on the highway. So it's definitely up to you to learn those different things, and don't forget that it's okay to make mistakes, whether they're big or small. It's what you do after the mistake, how you try to rectify the mistake, how you try to move forward, how you try to mend those relationships. So, you know, I know y'all short on time, so you know that's
Just one more
that's-
question, James.
Yeah. Go
You
ahead.
said we could teach our children how to be resilient. Can you give us like one or two tips on how we could teach our children how to be resilient?
Yeah. Allow your children to be vulnerable with you without chastising them is definitely one of the best ways. So you probably got a teenager now. Like just remember when you was a teenager and you probably wanted to smoke or have sex or something, but you know, realistically, like, I can't tell moms that she gonna flip, or I can't tell dad, you know, so we got to change those dynamic nouns to where we probably don't agree with what our children are bringing to us, but we at least have the compassion to exchange dialogue with them to make them feel comfortable enough with coming to us with this information. Because realistically, children are influenced outside the home way more than they are influenced within the home. And what I mean by that, think about it. Most of them got social media now. Most of them in school 8 hours a day, and then they probably got after school programs. So that leaves a small window. You probably eat dinner with your child, and then they got to go to bed. You got to get ready for work. So that's probably 2 or 3 hours of engagement, opposed to outside worldly information. They getting all this information in school from their peers. They're on social media getting it. They got that TV in the room or whatever the case is. So your influence definitely have to be greater than all those other outside influences. So that's one of the ways that I mean, and being just having that compassion to allow them to have that dialogue with you without you flattening up the hook, without you, putting them in that place to where you were when you was that age, is definitely can work wonders for them. That's more of the positive parenting side. Again, you don't have to agree with that decision. You wanted them to be comfortable enough to come to you when they do want to experience those peer pressure things, whether they're smoking or drinking or having sex even, because I have a 15-year-old now, and I would like, I want to know when she is being courted by a young man, you know what I'm saying? Like if somebody asks, I want her to feel comfortable enough to come to me, opposed to, I can't tell dad, because, you know what I'm saying? And so we had those discussions, and a couple things that she so she's never heard me yell. She's never heard me use explicit language. She sees me open the door for her mom or whatever the case is. So when I'm asking her all these questions, she said, oh no, he's gonna have to do that. She's 15, and I'm fortunate enough to not only have those examples, but for her to know, like, this is what I want, opposed to the opposite, you know what I'm saying? So that's some of the ways that we can do that. We can definitely model that.
Great. Yeah, I don't have a teenager. My son is 41, so I'll still try to.
Yeah.
So anyway, James, we have 2 more questions and we're going to wrap it up. This has
Sure,
been
go ahead.
amazing. This has been really informative and great. Robert, and then Puma.
Oh, well, he kind of answered my question about, talk to my son. That's something that I do. I always tell him that, it's an open table. Don't ever feel afraid to come to me to talk to him about anything, because same thing at that age, I had uncles, but they're more, like the crazy, nasty uncles, like, hey, you should do this, you should do that, or whatever. Not more of like, hear me out or whatever. And with my son, I'm like, you can talk to my in and everything. I'll listen to you, try to give you my best answer, but not like flipping the table over, or you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. One thing I just want to just piggyback off of where I came, and I think Paul, about, like the triggers and stuff like that. You just never know what might trigger you. And hopefully that, you, once you find that or whatever, you have an outlet towards it. Because something that I think Joaquin said that made me think about the TV show, I think it's called The Sinner, where the woman, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but she was just having a day out with her husband and her child, and she was on the beach and she heard somebody play like a song, and it was for her hearing a song to where it triggered something, and she wound up killing somebody, on the beach or whatever, and not knowing like what would the cause of that. And it was like, and it took like a long investigation. Like, why would you just, like, you was a perfect, like a perfect woman, but you had a husband, a kid, you had a company that you ran, you never been in trouble with the law or whatever. And all of a sudden, you hear one song, a trigger happen, and you blanked out or whatever. Kind of find out, like, she was drugged and she a witness to a murder. Then, she was there going, I'm not hallucinated, but she'll brainwash and some more stuff. But anyway, but like I said, triggers can go really, really deep that you don't even know or whatever. But that's all I want to say.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Robert. So we need to deal with our issues. and not just
Yeah.
suppress them, but
There
they'll
you
come
go.
up
Yeah,
when we least expect it. Puma, let's wrap it up.
Great, man. Thanks, Uncle Mike. Hey, James, I don't have a question. I want to say thanks a lot for what you shared today. And you had a wealth of knowledge that you can't share all in one night. So I want to know what's your YouTube channel and what's your Instagram page? Because I'm a YouTube junkie. So I do a lot of YouTube at nighttime. I can put it on and get some more nuggets from you, man. So what's your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So definitely, I put it in the chat. I don't know if it's still there, but the YouTube is Men to Heal, MENTOHEAL. And everything is on my website. So mentoheal.com, www.mentoheal.com.
There it is.
And yeah, of course, on the website, you can purchase the book, you can purchase the shirts as well,
Okay.
the board game, the YouTube, it's a resource list on there as well. If you do need like resources, different hotlines, and my information is on there as well.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
Puma don't put his phone down past 9 o'clock. You can see.
No, my phone is up, but y'all be on. So yeah, I see you. I just put your Instagram page. One of my good friends is following you. Army vet named Noble Gibbons.
Probably,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so many people on there in
Yeah, yeah,
passing, but
yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
No, I mean, I'm fortunate, that a lot of people gravitate to it.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate the time you had for us tonight. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that, man.
Brother James, this has been incredible. This has been a wonderful blessing. We've gained so much, and we will definitely look you up. Thank you for giving us your contact information. And I know I've been to your YouTube channel and received a lot of wealth and information there, but we really appreciate you spending this evening with us. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been a blessing. Yeah, so anyone else have a last minute comment or a thank you or anything you want to say before we?
Thank you.
Uncle Mike, I just wanted to say I tuned in late, but from what I heard, I enjoyed it very much. And I will be checking out the for the hearing impaired. Can we have your Instagram again?
Yeah. So the Instagram is men_TO_HEAL. That's on the website as well. And I think since he recorded it, it may be what's it called? The translated. You might can during the replay, you might can see the like you may be able to read the subtitles.
Black Therapist Heal Thyself. It's in the no, I'm talking about the
Yeah, he got it right there. Look at Puma's page.
I think it's this.
Yeah, that's the website. Yeah.
Uncle
Thunder,
Mike,
by
can
the
you
way.
just post it in the feed for everybody so that we can all have it whenever we need to get it?
Ishmael, can you post it in the feed, please?
I can definitely do that. And then also when it gets uploaded to the Google Drive, the recording, I'll put it in the WhatsApp. So any of the brothers that missed the early conversation, they'll have.
Ishmael, we can count on you and we can't count on anybody else.
That's for sure. So Ishmael, we, Brother James, we have a WhatsApp group where we keep in touch during the week. I think there's about 60 brothers on it. So Ishmael, if you could put that all of Brother James' information on our WhatsApp group, that'll be great. Brother James, thank you again. We appreciate you. Keep up the good work that you're doing. We really need you and appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and if anybody got any questions that I didn't answer, if you want to send me an inbox or email, you definitely can do that, and I'll definitely assist you with getting the answer or, helping you find a resource or whatever the case is. Appreciate y'all, man. Enjoy y'all night.
Thank you.
Please come back. Please come back.
Have a good night.
You're always welcome to come back.
All right.
Your family. Once you come in once, your family.
Yeah, that's it. It's over. He's in.
All right.
Thank you.
I like that.
All right, guys. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Black Rhino is on. I hope everyone noticed that.
Oh man, I was going to shout him out just now.
Yeah. Black Rhino, can you put on your camera at least? Like, gee.
Who?
Oh, there he
Black
is.
Rhino.
Put your camera on, bro.
That's you, brother. Yo.
There you go.
Hey.
What's up, brother?
Hello, it was good. How are ya?
Stranger.
I was trying to be quiet today because I missed you. I was writing people in the chat, but bro, it's if I could just elaborate really quick before you get off. An affirmation that you should have is why not me? And secondly, my son studied for this to get in an exclusive high school. He didn't get in. I said they're lost. You know what I'm saying? So it's how we deal with everything, bro. And listen, you guys know I haven't been here because I'm actually going back to school, and I never thought about teaching before, but now learning this cyber stuff, bro, it is so much information out here for us to just deal with, and knowing that you can change your stars. I had a very heated conversation with my boss the other day too, and all I did was go like, really? Oh, okay, that's cool. And I'm laughing at him the whole way because I'm like, bro, you're gonna pay me, or you're gonna see me leave, and we're gonna see this situation happen. We're never in a corner. We're never boxed in. Just got to keep it moving. And listen, bro, why not you? You got to tell yourself that every day. And then the brother who said that, you're the only brother in the room, lucky for them, because here you come. It's going to be more following you, bro. We don't got to stand up for the whole race, but we got to stand up to just be that man. So they realize the only thing they got in common is that they white. If these folks ain't show you that they crazy after listening to them talk over the last 4 years and what they be, I be looking at them like, yo, we cannot compare ourselves to these people at all. At all.
Yeah. So we make room. We're making room for those who come behind us. We don't have to justify our presence in that space. We are
bridge builders,
present,
bridge builders,
and without excuse, without pardon. That's who we are. So when we show up, we are. I want to challenge us to because my brother, that just the affirmations, those of us who have affirmations, to post them in the feed so that other brothers can see what we're saying and maybe we can glean from each other. Because I use affirmations every day, but why not me? It's a beautiful. I'm adding that to my list
Why
of
not
things I
you?
say to myself. Why not me? Right? Why not? And
Uncle Mike.
I promise you, bro, it's people looking at you who will never say anything, but you're giving them strength every day because you keep moving. You're gonna
That's exactly right.
listen, bro. They, when somebody mentioned about how to be vulnerable, let them see you live life like as it happens, because everything ain't gonna be rosy. And if you
Nope.
raise your kids that, oh, I'm gonna give my kid everything I didn't have, it was a reason why you didn't have everything you didn't have. So you can't have that in your head. You just continue to do the best you can, bro. And every generation is gonna get better because of the work that we do. And then I'm coming back to teach this class in July after I finish. But bro, it is so much information out there. Just be safe out there in the cyber world. Don't be putting your information anywhere. Just be cautious. And knowing what I know now, bro, I would never be on any kind of social media. It's just what it is because the information is free out there anyway. They know everything about us, and we give it away. So it's just be cautious and be prepared. July 13th, bro. We gonna be done with this course. We're gonna be back together at least except Phil. I'm not gonna be messing with Phil. It took him forever to get on. I text him and he's like, "Nah, I'm not messing with you." So I felt some kind of way, but
So what
it's
happened?
good to see you, bro.
You came on and Kendrick
I get bullied.
left. What's up with this?
Because I wrote him, Achilles, and Phil. I'm like, yo, I haven't been on here, y'all not here, but Kendrick had a function that they were going to. They all were doing things, so it's just spring break for me today, so I didn't have a class, so I wanted to chime in, but I was just trying to be in the cut. Love y'all dudes, man. I really miss you guys, and God bless. Stay up.
Uncle Mike, we need to pray for all the Will Smiths out there. Because let me tell you something. The only difference about him is he's a very wealthy man, and he did it on national, coast to coast television. There are some Will Smiths out there every day, all day, that did
When you
what
say
he
there's
did.
Will Smiths out there, what are you referring to? Like,
It's the slap. Because let me tell you something, Brother Paul, he hit the nail on the head when he was talking about, I believe, the principal at the school where he worked, I believe. I think that's what I heard. I kept getting knocked off. There are people that go to work every single day and want to just sock their boss out or a coworker. You understand what I'm saying? And most of us are a thought away from slapping somebody anyway. It just takes a trigger. I mean, and it doesn't take much to trigger a Black man who's been through something.
Right. But I
Bro,
also
guess
want
what?
to
They got a
suggest
lot of
also.
prisons for people who can't control their emotions.
Well,
I'm Team Chris Rock right now because he showed manhood. He did not. He could have blew them up. And anyone who saw the movie G.I. Jane, I didn't see it until the next day. So I'm not gonna say I didn't see it live, but I didn't think anything negative when he said it. But listen, you don't laugh at a situation and then you turn to your right and then you want to talk about you defend it. You laugh, bro. You would have instantly had a reaction. You thought about it.
That.
You looked over. I don't know.
I would say this though, but honestly, is that we talk about building ourselves up. Sometimes brothers have a negative outlook on somebody because of their internal stuff that's going on, right? So if one of my staff came to me one day, he said, I think you better than me because you have a master's degree. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't, where did that come from, right? But when we talked about it, he said that could be something in my head. And really it was. Like it was something he was feeling that was the story in his head based on his personal self-image. And so I spent the next 35, 40 minutes building that brother up and letting him know who he was and his power and his strength and his abilities. But his interpretation was based on his perception and his self-image. So if we can help build each other up, that's when my brother Black Runner was like, yo, why not me? Yes, we need to say that. We need to have affirmations every day to overcome the years of stuff that told us that we cannot, are not, will not. It's just something that we can share with each other and build each other up.
And Donald, it's so important that you were in a good place. If you were in a good place, that would have just escalated. And that's why we have to do things like we're doing tonight, where we're dealing with our stuff. We're dealing with our trauma so that we can be in a good place for that brother so it doesn't escalate.
That's it. Who asked about vulnerability? Was that you, brother Joaquin?
Ishmael.
Ishmael. I hate vulnerability. I
Okay.
have like a series of coaches and counselors and therapists and everything. I hate being vulnerable, but I have learned to just do what I hate because it makes better relationships. You know what I'm saying? It
Why
helped
do you
me
hate
grow.
being vulnerable?
Listen, I say it all the time, vulnerability sucks because a part of it is overcoming the image the facade that I put up there,
Okay.
right? Because we just real talk, we put up a facade, right? We don't want to talk about the stuff. And what Brother James said is true. What's vulnerable to one person is not vulnerable to another.
Yeah.
So, for me to talk about A, B, and C is vulnerability. But some other people can talk about that all the time. They don't have a problem with it. But that's, if you and when I get it out, they're like, that was it. That's what you were struggling to talk about.
But and the thing is, it's who I'm being vulnerable to. About 15,
That's
20
exactly
years,
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, my therapist told me, Mike, why are you being so strong with your wife? You're not sharing enough with her. You're not being vulnerable enough. That was a breakthrough in my relationship. I was like, why didn't someone tell me this sooner? I'm like, wow. I mean, but that was 20 years ago, that was like a defining moment. But now it's who I'm being vulnerable to. If you're vulnerable to the right person, it's sweet. I love vulnerability when it's to the right person. I mean, what I gained, I was like, wow, I was losing. Okay, wow. It was like, it took our relationship to
that's
another
a
level.
topic. Vulnerability in relationships. That's, I always say this, brothers always say they're good in bed, but they don't know because they never had them, right? So, I mean, realistically, we don't laugh, brother, right? But that's a vulnerability thing. Like, I mean, the joke was it good for you? We don't ask that question. We just be like, yeah, it was good. She smiled. I ain't gonna ask her. That's a vulnerability issue,
I always say I've had better, I mean.
better than yourself. I'll leave that alone. We're gonna leave that alone.
Barry, you should stop while you're ahead, man.
I know. But I'm bumped. Yeah, right.
Okay, Mike, thanks, my brothers. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This
I'll
has been
see y'all
great.
as we come. Yeah, we appreciate it and keep on, keep it on. Y'all keep stay strong. Yeah. Oh,
Right.
by the way, next Thursday is my birthday.
Okay. We're doing
and I'm
celebrate.
asking- I'm sorry.
What are we doing to celebrate your birthday?
I'm in celebration mode right now. We start
He's
April
being
1st,
vulnerable. He's
April 30th.
being vulnerable.
I'm gonna be vulnerable. Right? So, what I do ask is this, I'll probably put a video on the feed because I do this every year. But I'm asking anybody who would like to bless me for my birthday to do something kind for a perfect stranger, and then post about it. It's not bragging.
I know a lot of strange people.
It's-
That's gonna be expensive. I already know.
Okay, all right. Well, you just gotta pick one. And so I know some people like, well, I do stuff for people, but I don't want to brag about it. I was like, you're not bragging, you're letting me know, and that's my birthday present. Because I want to know, for me, it reaffirms that there's kindness in the world. And I just want to encourage kindness. So if you would be so kind within the next week or so to do something kind for a perfect stranger and to let me know about it, that would bless my heart tremendously.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, brother. All right, guys.
All right. Have a good night, brothers. All
Good
right.
night,
Thank you.
fellas.
Good night,
Hey.
everybody.
Night.
Double salute for you, Adi, man. Miss you, brother.
I miss you all, guys. Peace.
Take it easy, fellas.
All right.
Have a good night.